you're just joining us, my name is Bob Nichols. I work at Child Savers. I'm a manager there on the mental health side of what we do. You can find us at childsavers.org. And right at the top, I want to thank Ernst & Young. Without their support, this panel wouldn't be possible. So we are really glad that they have supported us in this way, and they believe in what our caregivers are trying to do all over the region and the Commonwealth. So thanks, Ernst & Young. Here's the flow for tonight. As you're joining us, hopefully you heard my comments. You can comment and pose questions for our panel on Facebook. You can pose questions to our panel on Zoom. Either way, I got to notice that we are now live on Facebook. So hello, Facebook. My name is Bob. This is the most repetitive part of this panel discussion. We have a all-star group of panelists this evening. We have 4 panelists with us. And I'm going to let them all introduce themselves in just a moment. This event starts now, and we're going to go until around 9:15. We'll try to answer as many of your questions as possible. The theme of tonight is caregiving through a reopening. So I'll just frame it by saying we kind of know what total lockdown is, and we kind of distantly remember what wide open, living your best life is. But right now we're kind of in the middle, and that's when things are confusing, when it's an in-between. So the purpose of this panel is to maybe give you a little knowledge about reopening, and also to encourage you, because there's probably 3 kinds of people on this call: people who are caregivers who are feeling isolated. I hope this call will help you feel a little less isolated. Caregivers who are looking for information about how do I care for children and other humans in my life. Hopefully this will encourage you and give you some knowledge you can use with that. And then the other kind of person is someone who's supporting a caregiver in your life, or supporting kids that aren't your own in some way. You might be a teacher, a neighbor. We're glad you're here. We hope you find something that will be useful to you through this Child Savers Parent Panel. First order of business is to introduce our panelists. So I've said my name, I've talked enough. I'd like our panelists to go around and introduce themselves. Alicia, heads up, I'm going to start with you. I'd like just to hear your name, anything you want to say about yourself. And here's my question. What's one thing you can't control in your life, but you really wish that you could control? Alicia, floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm Alicia Saunders Wilson. I am a colleague of Bob's over at Child Savers. I work in our child development services side, and I'm also the mother of an almost 2-year-old. So I've got child development and mommy experience on both sides. Right now, what I wish I could control is the weather. My son is an outdoor friendly lover, and he would love to be outside 24 hours a day if we would let him. So I would like for the warm weather to come and stay so that we can get outside and get his time in.
Alicia, I'm tempted to give you that control. Oh, thanks for being here, Alicia. Let's jump to Dr. Danny Avula. Danny, tell us a little about yourself and what's something you can't control, but boy, you wish you could.
Hello, friends. My name is Danny Avula, and in my normal life, I am a husband and father of 5, ages 9 to 20, who are all hilarious and zany and wonderful. My normal work life, I serve as the local public health director in Richmond and Henrico, but for the last 3.5 months have been pulled into this insane season of help trying to coordinate the vaccination effort across the state. It has been hard work, fun work, really meaningful. I mean, I don't know that there'll ever be anything I work on that's more meaningful than what we've done over the last few months together. But if something I could control, Bob, it would be like everyone just go get vaccinated, like wave a wand, everyone does it, and then I could wash my hands and go back to my old job.
Yes, wave a wand. We have full immune response.
Right.
Fewer needles involved. Oh, that's great. And Danny, that's very gracious of you to say, oh, it's so meaningful. I imagine there's other words you could use to describe it as well. So
some days, yes.
So much. Reverend Marvin Gilliam, tell us a little bit about yourself. Panelist number 3, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm grateful for your presence here. Grateful to be a part of this conversation. My name is Marvin Gilliam. I serve, well, first, I'm a husband and a father. I don't have I don't have one kid. I don't have 5 kids. I only got 3. I'm like right in the middle. A 6-year-old, a almost 5-year-old, and an almost 3-year-old. They both have birthdays in the month of May. Yeah, so it seems like it's five kids sometimes. And so in additionally to that, in terms of vocationally, I currently serve as the senior pastor at the Mount Carmel Baptist Church here in Churchill, right across from Chimborazo Park. Of course, we're not meeting in the building right now, so that's one of the things. Like, if I could like just wave a wand and like make it happen, like it'd be like, hey, let's get all of us back together in a safe and healthy way. But certainly we want to be cautious as possible about the health of our parishioners. So yeah, there's a lot of other things, but we'll go with that one.
Sure, yeah, it's a fun list to think about. What would I like to control that I can't? Thank you, Reverend Gilliam. And Reverend Pierre Green, hello, how are you? Who are you?
All right. Good afternoon. Well, good evening. I'm Reverend Pierre Green. I'm a financial professional in the day. I'm also a clergy. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 3 boys. So I have a 13-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 18-month-old. So my house is busy, to say the least. So if you hear anything, it's the kids. If I can control something, it would be we can eat all the ice cream we want and don't have to worry about our weight. As I've gotten older and I have a sweet tooth, it has a tendency to stick to me, unlike it used to when I was in my 20s. So if it was up to me, we have all the chocolate chip, ice cream, and cookies and cream we can eat with no repercussions.
The metabolism of the 20s and the wisdom of all the other decades at one time. Right. I really love that. Pierre, you're getting some here's in the chat, by the way. Well, again, I'll just say welcome to everyone that's rolling in here. We have been blown away by the number of people who are interested in a caregiver panel to hear from parents about how they're doing reopening, because it is this weird in between of like, it's not a total lockdown and we're not just wide open. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight, more a little public health focus at the top, and then a little bit more caregiver strategies at the back half. We're headed for this question. I'll just say this again for all our panelists and all of the people on this call. How are you encouraging yourself right now? I hope today will be an encouraging moment for you. I'll just kind of shepherd us through this. So that's the frame. Here we all are, all these souls in this Zoom call right now. Thank you for being here. Danny, can I start with you? I'd just love to hear, what are some of the top messages you really hope will be in the ears of all the parents and other kind of caregivers in the Commonwealth right now?
Well, I hope that the top line message is hope, that this has been a really hard year, and finally with the vaccination effort well underway at this point, there's a light, right? There's a path forward in trying to reopen and trying to reimagine our life as it once was. As of today, we have about 5.6 million folks who have at least, or 5.5 million doses that have been distributed throughout Virginia. About 41% of the state's population that has had at least one dose. And if you kind of shrink that to who can actually get vaccinated, because right now that's only people 16 and over, it's about 55%. And so we're making really good progress. And I think over the next few weeks, we'll probably get to that 60 to 65% of eligible adults that have gotten at least one dose. And then we're going to have to shift to some harder work to get out into communities and vaccinate, in neighborhoods, in homes, do whatever we can to lower barriers to access that some communities have faced. And then we're also going to have to do the harder work of talking to people and listening well and understanding why people don't want to get vaccinated, and seeing if there is a way that we can reassure them so that they will. And the goal ultimately is to get about 75% of the population vaccinated. That's the target we've set. It's not a magic number. We know that given the transmissibility of COVID, that somewhere between 70 and 80% of the population has to be immune. And immunity comes in 2 ways. It either comes by getting vaccinated, But it also comes through getting COVID. And we've had north of 600,000 folks in Virginia who have gotten COVID and have some degree of natural immunity. It turns out that immunity through the vaccine is actually much better. Like if you look at the national stats, 77 million people as of last week who had been fully vaccinated. And out of all of those 77 million people, 5,800 people who have breakthrough infections, which means they got the vaccine and they still tested positive for COVID. That's a remarkably low percent, as opposed to if you have had COVID and you have natural immunity, it's somewhere around 10 to 20% of those people. There was just a report done in the military yesterday that showed 10% of this group of individuals got reinfected with COVID. I've seen similar studies out of Denmark. But all that to say that we're like weeks away from hitting, at least close to those numbers. Now, that's not everybody, because we still have children, right? And right now the vaccine is eligible or approved for kids 16 and over, the Pfizer vaccine. We do anticipate by the end of May that kids 12 and over will be approved for vaccination. And that's a lot faster than we were expecting. I think we originally were thinking about a September, October timeframe, but the initial safety and effectiveness data has looked really good in their studies for 12 and over. So both Pfizer and Moderna have now applied for approval, and the CDC anticipates that could be end of May, early June, which means that we may even have a couple weeks towards the end of school that we can start vaccinating that 12 and up population. And then the younger kids, there's a lot of clinical trials going on right now for kids down to age 2. They likely will not be ready to be vaccinated until early in 2022. But, I still do think that there is a lot to be hopeful around, like the data around vaccination has looked really good. I think the population living in nursing homes and assisted living facilities is one really compelling example of when you look at when vaccination started in the middle of December in those communities, just the case rates and death rates have just rocketed downwards. It has been remarkably effective. And so while we have not seen a decrease in case rates yet in Virginia, we've been pretty plateaued this last month or so. That's probably going to be one of the things that we need to see happen before things really start to open up. And I think that hopefully will be sometime this summer. There's certainly some indicators that look positive, and the CDC keeps updating its guidelines, right? So now if you're fully vaccinated and you're exposed to COVID, you don't have to quarantine anymore. Or if you're fully vaccinated and you're spending time inside with other people who are fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask or socially distance. So, the more data we get, the easier life is starting to get. And I'm starting to just feel that in very small instances, but they're happening more and more often. So that feels really promising.
I just want to say I have a complicated relationship with hope now. I used to love hope, and now I'm kind of scared of it. But you're selling me on it a little bit. So before we get kind of some reactions of different parents on the panel to what you're saying, I'd love if you could speak to two kind of groups. So parents who've been vaccinated as they're moving into the summer and then the school year, maybe next year, a typical school year, we'll see. And then caregivers who maybe have been vaccinated but are working in close contact with people who have not. How do we think about those two groups of vaccinated caregivers? Any considerations there?
Yeah, remind me who the first group again was. Second group
fully vaccinated, but they work closely with people who are not. Maybe it's a health worker or otherwise.
I think I would just reassure both that, again, the data around people who are fully vaccinated getting COVID again, and even like we were worried for a while that maybe you could still get it and transmit it, and it really does not appear that that's the case. And so, the more that we learn about people who are fully vaccinated and recognize this is the first time we've ever used this vaccine, it's the first time we've ever had to deal with this virus, but each month that goes by, it's more and more reassuring. And so I hope that people feel like now that they've been fully vaccinated, the risk to them is actually so small. And so even if you are in a childcare setting where you're working with kids who aren't and can't be vaccinated yet, know that your protection is more remarkable than any vaccine we've really ever seen.
For maybe caregivers who, for whatever reason, have not been vaccinated yet, I'm guessing your first response is get vaccinated. But for caregivers who aren't vaccinated, how should they be thinking about the summertime?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I understand that there are lots of reasons that people are hesitant about this. I mean, I talk to folks every day. We think about strategies every day. Some of it is, personal and philosophical, whether it's what you believe or what you don't know about the long-term effects of vaccine, or that what we're seeing, especially out in rural communities, is that people feel like it's a government requirement and they should have the freedom of choice, or you just don't. You hear a lot of things on social media, and so I would really just encourage you to go to credible sources first. There is a lot of stuff on social media that will lead people astray, and so I would ask that you would talk to health professionals, that you would go to the CDC website or go to the state health department website. But I'd also, find places and people where you can actually talk honestly and openly about what your concerns are, right? Because I think there are lots of legitimate reasons that people are concerned, and we need to find places to work through that. And if you do that and you still are you've looked at the data, at this point, I don't know, 108 over, actually, we're closing in on 200 million, or maybe just crossed the 200 million person threshold. Millions and millions of people have gotten this vaccine. So I guess I would just really encourage you to take a hard look at what's keeping you from doing it, because it's safe and it's working. And if after all of that, you feel like it's not for you, then I think you just, until we see case rates drop low enough, then I think you need to do everything you can to keep others safe, which is wear your mask, continue to distance, and really monitor your own symptoms. And if you develop any symptoms of COVID, stay home and get tested.
Yeah. Last kind of medical hot seat question for you, Danny, and then we'll get some of our panelists' responses here. But when a choice exists between different kinds of vaccines, for me, for my family, how should I be thinking about that? I know not everyone has a choice, but when a choice exists, what are the factors?
So, there are 3 approved vaccines right now: the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the Johnson & Johnson. Obviously, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has come under a lot of scrutiny recently because the federal government found this potential pattern of individuals. They found 6 people out of a total of 7 million people who received the J&J vaccine, 6 individuals who developed this kind of rare blood clot, or rare stroke-like syndrome. So the CDC said, okay, let's take a deeper look. And in the meantime, let's hold off on giving this vaccine. Let's see if there are any other cases of this going on around the country, and see if we can determine some kind of correlation or causation. So that's what they've been doing this past week. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices meets again tomorrow, and they'll talk about what their decision is. Now, Europe has recently gone through a similar exercise with Johnson & Johnson, and they came out on Wednesday and said, it really is such a small number of cases that we feel like it's better to actually use J&J. We're going to save more lives by using this vaccine, and we'll include on the label, this is one of the rare potential side effects. So it's right now it's looking like that's a 1 in a million chance, and 1 in about 500 to 600 people who contract COVID pass away from it. So I think we've got to think about these things in relative risk. But back to your question, 3 options. The J&J is the one that we'll have a decision on tomorrow. It's 1 dose, and generally people are having less side effects. And it may not be quite as effective in preventing mild disease, but it is close to 100% effective in preventing hospitalization and death. So still a really good choice. I actually had the J&J vaccine and would do it again without any hesitation. The Moderna and Pfizer are both 2-dose vaccines. They do seem to have a little bit more higher effectiveness, certainly against severe disease, but also against mild disease. And so if you are up for a 2-dose vaccine, then both are great choices. I have heard, and there have been some reports that say that second dose of Moderna can generate a few more side effects, like, just more achiness, more fever, but not significantly different. So, I don't know that I would strongly recommend one of the three over the others, but that's the lay of the land as we currently know it.
That. Yeah, I think so I really appreciate it. I'm going to give a shout out to my buddy Nolan. Some people have already started to populate some questions in our chat here. One caregiver in the community did ask, Brave, that first question prize goes to Nolan. What's the challenge with opening schools? And then we'll go to our parents on our panel. But what's the challenge with opening schools, regardless of filter or HVAC systems? If you are feeling more hopeful, where does that hope intersect with the caution we're seeing from our school leaders?
Yeah, I really think it is the fear of the community. And I think this is something that we as public health need to really wrangle with head on, because I think so many of our parents and families fear COVID, understandably, right? Like, they've had people in their families be hospitalized or die, or in their congregations. And so I think particularly in the city of Richmond, because African Americans get hospitalized and die at higher rates, and because the network is so tight, like, it's a much more personal experience for people of color in our city, and that's predominantly who is in our school system. And so, a lot of the decision making of Richmond Public Schools has been a response to where are our teachers and where are our students, and I totally respect that, right? Like, I think this is an example of the school system listening well and being really responsive to where the teachers and families are at. That said, the data around COVID in schools, I with the one caveat of what's happening right now, and I'll talk about that in a second, but up until this past few weeks, the data around COVID in schools has been amazing, right? Like, that school systems have been able to, enforce mask wearing, have been to enforce distancing to some degree, but there have been so few school-related outbreaks. And when they are, it's generally because the adults are not really doing the social distancing. The vast majority of transmission that happens in the school setting is when, like, teachers are hanging out in the teacher's lounge, or adults in the school system are interacting with each other without maintaining mask wearing and distance. It's not child to child, and it's not child to adult. So, based on the data alone, and I've been pretty consistent about this in my conversations with both the Richmond and Henrico school boards over the last year, that we should absolutely reopen schools. Like, we are doing a lot of harm to our kids to continue virtual learning, and we need kids back in schools, but we also need to do the right things to reassure our teachers and families to be able to get there, and we got to get there together.
Grab some water. You've done a lot of talking that's so valuable. So thank you. I'm gonna challenge everybody on the call, keep those questions coming, or on Facebook. We will try to get to all the questions we can. But for now, Pierre, Marvin, Alicia, I would love just to hear what stood out to you from what Dr. Avula was saying, and how has this been for you, thinking ahead about reopening? Any initial thoughts from our panel? I'll start with you, Alicia. I see you're off mute. What stood out about what Dr. Avula had to say?
The reduced rate of transmission if you've been fully vaccinated. That's the first time that I've received that information. So that's really exciting to hear. Having a young child, that's always been my concern, is transmission, bringing it home, or him being exposed and bringing it home, and transmission in the house. So that's really exciting to hear. And I think, as far as how we're doing with things and thinking about reentry, the biggest thing that's kind of been on my mind is that social emotional piece that Dr. Avula was talking about, that, even for our children, but for our adults too, we've been through things in the last 13, 14 months that we have not experienced before. And so as we re-enter into the world and we become coworkers who work in the same building again, and we talk to our neighbors and we talk with our friends, we have to keep in mind that people may not be 100% the same as they were before the pandemic happened. You're going to run into families who have faced homelessness and have had multiple losses within their family in this short time period. And that's a lot to overcome, and that's a lot to work through. So I think it's really important that we give people grace, and being aware that people are going to be a little bit different when we come back. And we've got to be on top of being a little bit more present in those moments and not expecting 100% normalcy, as we've labeled it, going back to what things were before the pandemic.
Alicia, you are coaching me right now. I need to put that into my phone and listen to it. Acknowledging the realness of the stress and the loss and trying to stay present in each of these decisions going forward. I agree that transmission rate stood out to me. Pastor Marvin, what stood out to you from what Dr. Avula said, and how are you doing with those kids at home?
I'm kind of with Alicia. Like I was just like, oh man, these numbers like are what 77 million and only like 1,500 out of 77 million people. Like that's incredible, and it's really encouraging, I think, for kind of moving forward and how we move in the world. One of the things that's been a huge challenge. My oldest son, who is a kindergartner in Henrico County public school, so it's his first year in school, and the excitement of I'm a kindergartner and all of that. And I think a lot of it was on the parents. Was like, I don't get to walk them to the bus stop and all of those things, right? But one of the things he said to me a couple of weeks ago that really kind of broke my heart a bit was he was like, I haven't made any friends in my class because he's doing virtual learning. And I was just like, I was like, man, that part, and it's hard because back in September, his brother, who was about to turn 5, we allow him to go back to his pre-K4, which is a private daycare at a church not far from us. And then my daughter started going back in February, and so like he's the only one that's at home and not really having that interaction. And so I'm really encouraged by what Dr. Avula shares about going back to school and reopening, because now both my kindergartner and the one who's about to start kindergarten in the fall will be able to go into the building and kind of have those interactions. And I know that's a piece today that our kids have really been missing is that interaction and that social emotional development that comes from being around other kids. And so we try to find ways that are ways that we can kind of get him with his cousins and get him with some friends that may be in the neighborhood. We used to let him just like kind of play outside with some neighborhood friends. It was like, don't go in anybody's house, but y'all can play outside. So I'm grateful because all of the adults in our house are fully vaccinated at this point as well. And so we're, kind of taking those precautions and doing that. But and to Alicia's point, just trying to offer a lot of grace, as we go back, because this has been a really hard time, both for children and for adults. Is going to be really vital. So as we return into our, spaces of restaurants, churches, of, kind of leisure and vocational work, that we kind of give each other, we kind of allow each other that space and show each other that love that, allows them to kind of come back and feel comfortable, and know that we're all in this thing together.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Pastor. We are in this together. My heart goes out to your kindergartner. I haven't made any friends in my class yet. Man. Pastor Pierre, let me go to you. I don't want to forget you over there. Initial thoughts. What stands out to you?
I echo everything that Dr. Avula and Alicia and Marvin have already said. One thing that we've been trying to focus on is understanding that it is a new normal. The way school used to be for my second grader and my 8th grader, it will not be like that next year. And so we're really trying to be transparent with them to understand that, hey, it won't be, you all won't have lunch where it's 80 guys at a table. It's going to be different. And so once they're understanding what it's going to look like, they're open to it. They're getting excited about going back into school. My wife and I are fully vaccinated. We took the Johnson & Johnson and we had no issues. So our kids are seeing that and they're wondering, well, when can we do it? When can we go back in there? And the biggest thing for us as parents is really want to understand the school's plan to keep our kids safe. How they're going to clean, how they're going to, how they're going to allow the kids to interact and keep everybody safe. That's something that we have not seen or have not read the data on it. So that's where we're on the fence. We know that the kids need to be back in school. We want them back in school, but more importantly, we want them to be safe.
So let me run a quick situation came up in the chat from Ms. Kelly. Thank you, Pastor Pierre. And then we're headed for how are you talking to your kids right now about this stuff? So that's kind of keep that top of mind. Situation from Kelly. Kelly, thanks for your comment. She says, I'm curious to know if parents are vaccinated, how safe is it for them to be around other vaccinated humans if, here's the caveat, they have a 9-year-old who is immunocompromised at home. So we're thinking for myself, but also my child, and they're immunocompromised. Initial thoughts from you, Dr. Avula?
Yeah, I think it depends what the degree of immunocompromise is, right? If this is a young child with, who's undergoing treatment for cancer, then I would be really careful. And frankly, the risk from other diseases would probably outweigh the risk from COVID, but all of those things would be worth being concerned about. If they have a more chronic illness like diabetes, and that's leading to some degree of immunocompromise, then I think if you are with other people who are fully vaccinated, and we define fully vaccinated as 2 full weeks after your last dose of whether it was a 2-dose or 1-dose vaccine, then I think the risk is minuscule. I mean, as we've talked about, and I put something in the chat that shows the CDC reference around that 5,800 cases out of over about 77 million doses administered, and or 77 million fully vaccinated. So I really just think it's a remarkably low risk, and the likelihood of them succumbing to some other illness is actually much greater. And remember that COVID in young kids really does not cause severe illness at all. There is this very rare occurrence of something called a multisystem inflammatory syndrome, and but by and large, that is a rare occurrence by itself. And really who we're most concerned about are the elderly and adults who have severe underlying conditions.
Thank you. Kelly, I hope that's helpful to you. Let's do a round robin with the parents. How are you talking to your kids right now about reopening? I think a lot of us know about talking to kids about lockdown. How are you talking to your kids about reopening? Are you framing it as, I'm going to try to explain some of these really helpful statistics. I'm going to explain the medical. I'm trying to talk about safety. I'm trying to talk about responsibility to others. Alicia, let's start with you again, just because you got that great mom energy. None of us dudes have. How are you talking to your kids right now about reopening?
Well, like I said, my son is 1. He'll be 2 in a few short weeks here. And so really for him, he's reaching that age where a mask is becoming part of what we've got to consider for him. So it's really been about making the mask fun. He's not near a vaccine, but when that time comes, it will be just like we talked about his other vaccines, that we focus on the positive, that it's, it's something to help keep us safe. And same when we've talked about the mask, we've bought the fun, monster mouth prints, and he's been around other children who have masks at his family day home center that he attends during the week. And he's really excited about it because he almost kind of feels left out at this point because all the other big cool kids are wearing masks. So he's like, he'll get in the car and he'll say, Mom, a mask. He wants to try and put his mask on. So just giving him opportunities to wear it around the house and make it fun and exciting for him has been the best way, and trying to kind of remove the intensity of it and make it just as a commonplace as we can, because really for him, he doesn't know too much more. The pandemic started when he was 9 months. So this is kind of his reality and all he's known. So we're incorporating it in that sense. And as we make the steps, we'll just address each step as it comes.
Yeah. Pastor Marvin, how are you talking to your kids right now? We heard a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So, I mean, our kids are so adaptable. Like that's what this pandemic has really taught me, is how quickly and how easily they adapt to change. We started off talking about, and they understand, kind of in their own terms, what the sickness is and why it's important. Actually, we in December, my wife, myself, my mother-in-law, we all ended up having COVID. Fortunately, we came through that whole situation well, but we were like all quarantined in the house together, and so that was another opportunity. So they really like kind of understand like how important it is for them to wear their mask, to wash their hands. And they're pretty good about it. There have been rare days where, my 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old is, forgotten his mask at home. And now his sister's like every day, even though she doesn't have to wear a mask because she's not 3 yet, at their daycare, that every day she's like, I want my mask. I want my mask, kind of like Alicia's son.
Let me ask you, it's important. Why is it important? How do you talk about the why with your kids?
Just sharing about the interest of other people, like staying healthy, and that's the key, that we want to make sure that we're not spreading germs to other people, and so they understand, and that's reinforced in their school as well. And likewise with my oldest son, even when we go out, because once he's finished with school, like it's like, all right, we got to run some errands and do some things. It's like, all right, you got your mask. Hey, don't, always reiterating, don't touch. Make sure you sanitize when we go in the store and come out of the store. And it's all about just keeping yourself healthy, but also looking out for the interest of, the whole entire community. Certainly that's a big part of, kind of the faith piece for us. But really it's just, I think, just like being a good neighbor, just being a good contributing member of the community is, how can I help keep everybody else safe? And part of that process is, hey, let's wear the mask. So they're excited about, going back into school. My oldest is like ready to go back, and he's like, I don't care if I got to wear a mask. He's like, I just want to be around kids,
I'll do whatever I have to do.
Yeah. He's like, get me out of here. Like, I'm tired of you old people. So.
Pierre, bring us back. Anything similar with how you're talking to your kids? Anything different there?
Yeah. Transparency. We're very transparent with our kids, and we keep it simple. We give them the space to be able to ask questions. If they've heard something or read something, they can sit and just ask us about them. And we're honest with them. If we don't know the answers, we'll tell them. And we use a lot of hand sanitizers and Lysol. So that's become a normal thing in our home. And so, but the key thing I would say is just keep it simple with the kids. We don't have to get real technical, just really making it simple and making sure that they feel comfortable. For example, if we're going to Target and we pull in the parking lot and my son say, hey, Dad, it's really a lot of people in here. I'm not comfortable right now. I say, no problem. We'll keep going and we'll come back at another time. Even though I may be okay, I understand that I have to take how they feel in consideration to keep them safe. And that's been good for us.
I'm imagining on a certain day, it's easy to do. And on another day where it's like, I have to get this done because I need this thing for an event. Please be okay with this. What a cool point about if they're comfortable, they'll tell you how they're feeling and what they need. I really love that. Danny, how are you talking to your kids about COVID, or are they like, oh no, health department, I don't want to talk about it?
They hear it all day, every day. I will say, I don't know that they have experienced this. So, really early on, we have, 2 families that are our closest friends, and they've just been our quarantine circle. And so for my kids, they're like, we're done with school at 2, and they just see their best friends every day, and they're super happy about it. So, I think that village has definitely it's been so needed, and it's gotten us through this really brutal last year. So I don't know that they feel much loss at all at this point, weirdly.
Yeah, I think of your age set, so different from, say, Alicia's, and that village is so important, even like 13 to the 20s, like that's I really need my people away from my family,
Yeah.
Have you all picked, let me just jump to the next question. Have you picked back up any activities for your kids that, especially those older kids, that you had let go of during lockdown or pandemic early days?
Yeah, they just signed up for soccer again, so that got started in the last few weeks. That's been encouraging. Um, Other than that, not really. We haven't done a lot of outside of our village. We haven't done a lot of although we could at this point. I mean, the three adults in my household are fully vaccinated, so that'll come. I mean, I think it's just hard for all of us to take that first step and say, is this okay? Like, it feels weird. I was in a meeting with two other people who were fully vaccinated the other day, and they were like, all right, like, we can do this, and we did it with our mask, and we are like, what is going on? So it will be weird for everybody, I think.
Normalize the weird. Let me ask all our panelists, like, what activities have you picked back up, Marvin, Pierre, or Alicia? And how are you thinking about enriching your kids' lives right now in a different way than maybe you were thinking about it 6 months ago?
Well, we picked back up karate, actually. My kids do karate, so they're back in karate. Karate does an amazing job. You have to register now, and they only have a limited amount of spots. And they clean 30 minutes in between each class, so the kids feel comfortable. And then for me, I was so excited. I took my 18-month-old to the park last week, and to get him on the slide for the first time, I was like a big kid. And so that was very exciting for us to go to the park. Once we got through with the park, we wiped them down with wipes, hand sanitizer, came home, cleaned everybody. But just to see that excitement and to be outside on the playground, running around, I felt good, I think it was more for me than the kids, but we'll just leave that alone.
They're like, Dad, you're weirdly into this playground right now.
There's no judgment. We did the same thing. I said earlier, my son loves to be outside. So that's kind of been our entry point is we decided to have a little small family treat day. So we went out and got donuts from the donut shop, and we actually let him go inside with his mask and pick out which one he wanted. And we went and had a picnic in the park and just let him, kind of run and just be outside without the, being so cautious about touching anything. And we did the same thing. He came home and got a full wipe down head to toe, but just to give the opportunity to be around other children and just the opportunity to kind of re-enter going into places and having experiences. We've been very intentional about bringing experiences into our home for him for the last year. So now it's really exciting at the opportunity to be able to take him back out to have experiences, to go to the zoo and see the animals in real life and not just in pictures and books and videos. Those types of things are really exciting to have on the verge.
Yeah, a couple of things that we've done. We went to we took the kids to the trampoline park on like a Saturday. And there were a few people there, not a lot of people, but the park did a really great job about, keeping things clean and orderly there. And the kids had a great time, just like kind of jumping around and playing the video games and all of that. The park has been like our go-to, throughout this whole thing. Of course, in the winter months, not so much, but like now it's like every chance we get, it's like, let's take them to the park, let's take them to the neighborhood playground so they can just be outside and, kind of playing, be around other kids. Usually at our neighborhood playground, it's usually just them, but they're out there just having a blast, just kind of playing together. And so those kind of been the things. The one big discussion that we're having now is about like summer activities, summer camps, things of that nature, because particularly for our oldest, because we want them to kind of have some more interaction with kids, more so, more like his brother and sister have had. So those have been kind of the major points for us. Is like, all right, so what do we do this summer? What kind of activities can we get, kind of get them involved in and kind of reintegrate that, that social interaction piece, and what, and figuring out how camps are doing that.
It's really sticking with me, Pastor Marvin, because I think it's been so day to day, moment to moment. I just for myself, I haven't really looked forward. You're looking forward. You're putting some things back on the calendar 2, 3, 4 months out. That seems like a significant shift from some of the days where we're just tuning into the news every day to see like what else is wrong.
Definitely a shift.
Yeah. Anybody backfilling something, like as we look forward, is anybody planning something for their kids at the whole range of ages that we have represented to backfill some things they didn't get? I'm thinking of some of the social comments Marvin made about his kindergartner wanting friends, and maybe some of the pieces of development that you're like, my kids didn't get to do the things I did when I was their age. Who's planning anything out like that? Is that a concern on our parents' minds? Think about it. Think about it.
I hadn't really thought about it in terms of backfilling, but I guess in some ways, just some of the experience. And I guess some of the discussions we're having about like sports camps, and Dr. Avula mentioned his kids starting back up with soccer. My middle boy asked me, he's like, when are we gonna sign me? When are we gonna sign up for soccer? This is my year to play soccer. So he's so thinking about those things, I think would maybe count as a backfill piece, because that was something that we were planning to have them involved in before all of this kind of transpired. And even looking forward, like I said, my middle son turns 5. And so last year he had this like it was a really small birthday party where we didn't like really do a whole lot. And then this year he turns 5, and it's like, he's really excited to like do something. So we're trying to, think through and figure that out. So those are kind of things that we're, kind of anticipating, just kind of continue to create those memories for them.
I also hear some of our panelists saying, in so many words, I think maybe Pierre had said it the best, like that your kids haven't missed much. I mean, they have missed things. There's huge changes, and it sounds like the 4 of you are doing a decent job of staying connected to your kids through this experience. So tell me if I'm wrong about that, but I want to give you a shout out.
We just really want to happening. We want a bad date, something for.
Yeah. I got a little feedback there. Sorry about that. Had one question just for parents on the call. I don't know who's doing virtual learning right now. Aaron wants to know, how do you help manage a child's virtual learning when you are going back to work? Is anybody in that position? Throw Aaron a bone. Aaron, our hearts go out to you.
I would say someone put in the comment village. Someone put in the comment village. This is where you have to lean on your village. That's a tough situation. You have a lot of pre-K and other learning facilities that will support you. Maybe you can look into something like that. I know Child Savers can probably give you a list of learning academies that can probably assist you with something like that. A lot of churches in the community are learning hubs, but that's the best thing. You're going to have to, that's being stuck between a rock and a hard place, because I understand you have to work to provide, but you also, if your kids are young like mine, you need to be there with them to make sure they stay in the classroom, they keep their camera home, they're doing what they're supposed to. So I definitely would say lean on the village in a situation like that.
Definitely a job that is bigger than one person. Yeah, so I think I heard someone, maybe I overspoke someone else here. But are you taking, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay, it's okay. In this situation, I telework, and my kids I have a 4 and a 7-year-old, and they are, my 4-year-old goes to a daycare, and my 7-year-old stays at home with me and does virtual school. And we have been transitioning from virtual into actually going into the classroom here lately. And, but it's been a real struggle, I'll have to say, but it's kind of cute. I've set her desk up like right next to mine, and we both get up in the mornings, and I have my coffee and she has her milk, and we sit down together, and she does school and I just plug away at work. And luckily, I've been lucky to have a job where I can telework and be home and have that little bit of flexibility. But I also never stopped putting my 4-year-old in daycare. I think I would have gone insane. Because for me personally, I also have a grandmother that I take care of as well that has Alzheimer's. And So I literally had to pull her out of nursing homes because I didn't want to not see her through the whole COVID mess. And that's what a lot of nursing homes were doing, were telling you that you couldn't see your family members. So I pulled her out and she came home. So it's been the four of us trying to navigate, and it's been very tough. But, you know, I would say if you have the opportunity to telework, I would definitely do that because it's been a lifesaver. But the other thing is that my daycare that I send my kindergartner to, she literally, they only take virtual students. If kids are going back to school at all, they haven't allowed them to come back into the daycare. So at least the kids are in their own little bubble.
Definitely important to got those pieces of kind of the protocol. I would be remiss if I didn't say, I see you, Lisa. Early care never closed. And there are some real heroes who are early care workers. Child Savers also works in the early care space. So if you need child care referrals and you can hear my voice, just write down childcareware@childsavers.org. That's going to be a great way to get yourself some referrals. So before I lose it, I had a question in from Jen, and I just want to say, if you want to come off mute, this is working great. Thank you, Miss Melinda. With this many people, if you want to come off mute on the Zoom call and pose a question, just send a little chat to Annie Evans-Hedrick, and she'll make sure that happens. And that she can kind of be our air traffic controller. And Miss Wanda, I think it was you that I might have overspoken earlier. Did you want to comment before we move on?
Yeah. I just wanted to comment to the young lady who was asking about childcare because she has to go back into the workforce. I am actually the virtual learning coordinator at our childcare center. And one of the other young ladies was speaking about how her childcare facility only takes virtual learners. We actually take virtual learners and children that go to school before and after, as well as our full day preschool children. So I think Child Savers is an excellent resource to locate a facility that can accommodate your needs because we are out there. It's just a matter of finding out what care center would work for you in your area, in your location, and be able to accommodate your needs. Because we are there and we're still teaching some of our children who parents do not want them to go back. We've had maybe 70, 80% of our children return back to school, but we still have those few that their parents are hesitant to send them back. And so we are there for them. We are available. And I know there are many other centers out there, as well as the YMCA. I know Hopewell Community Center, places like that. So just use Child Care Savers as your resource. Reach out to someone else said your village, because the village helps a lot too, because prior to us getting back into the centers, we had to use our village. And basically we were watching each other's kids flip-flopping back and forth and things like that. So work together with your village if you have them. Churches are great resources because I know they may not be able to provide childcare, but I know they have resources where they can refer you and things like that. So I wish you the best of luck. Know that we are out there continuing to strive for the best for our children, and I yield the floor.
Thank you, Miss Wanda. I the parliamentarian in me salutes you to yield the floor. Miss Erin W., I hope you're getting what you need. I think it's meant to be that you were on the call and posed your question. I've got a question from Jen and a question from Sarah. I want to pose these specifically to Dr. Avula. These are more medical. Jen asked a question about alarming number of hospitalizations of children in Michigan. Can you speak to that scenario? Are you familiar with?
Yeah, so this was actually the caveat that I was going to get into when I was talking about transmission in schools, is that, up until really the last few weeks, we really have not seen much transmission in schools at all. Since spring break of this year, Michigan and Minnesota in particular, but there have been a few other examples around the country, are starting to see much larger outbreaks in schools and in school-age children. And in fact, I said that Virginia is plateauing or has been plateaued for about a month. That is not the case in places like Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, a handful of other states that are actually seeing surging cases right now. And the more troubling part of that is that the surges, at least in the Midwest and Michigan and Minnesota, are in younger children. It's in that 10 to 19 age group is the highest number of cases. They are seeing transmission both in schools, largely in youth sports, and largely in college kids. College kids are driving a lot of this transmission as well. And so I think a lot of this is these new variants, the UK variant, the South African variant. In fact, the UK variant, the B117 variant, has been identified as the big driver in Michigan and Minnesota. And it's a big deal, right? Like, we are definitely about 44% in the CDC's last report, 44% of new cases across the country are the UK variant. In Virginia, it's about 32% that we've seen so far. And we've seen evidence of some of the other variants. Just last week on Friday, there was a press release that we found our first 2 cases of the P1 variant, which is the Brazilian variant. And in those cases, one of them had a travel history, one of them did not. And so what that tells us is that these variants are on the ground. They're circulating in our community. And the troubling part of that is that they're way more contagious, like 60 to 70% more in that UK variant. And that's really, I think, what was driving a lot of that transmission in schools. Now, the positive side is that our vaccines are incredibly effective against at least the UK variant and South African variant, the only ones we have data on. The vaccines seem to be just as effective against those as they are against the normal strains. And 2, they don't seem to be causing more severe disease. So even in Michigan and Minnesota, where you're seeing big surges in cases, you're not seeing that in severe disease in children. The hospitalization rate in Michigan is going up, but it's like 20 to 40s. So it's people who, ideally would be healthy enough and wouldn't be getting hospitalized, but because they're seeing so much more disease, they are seeing a slight uptick in hospitalization. So we're going to have to watch and see how that plays out in those states and eventually in Virginia. But I don't think it changes sort of the core strategy, which is let's get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible. Because once you get the vulnerable people vaccinated, this is not any really different than the flu in younger people. I mean, it's been really severe in your elderly population, but I think the once we can get to that herd immunity, we'll still see some transmission on kids, but it won't be a major concern.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Avula. One more for you. Sarah says, any movement on those people who care for the most vulnerable, let's say ICU nurses or people caring for elderly folks, any movement on requiring a vaccine for those folks? Thinking of nurses, I think we've all heard some anecdotal stories about nurses who are more vaccine hesitant. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so right now there's not really room or opportunity for a governmental mandate around vaccine. These vaccines are under what's called an emergency use authorization. They get fully licensed by the FDA. The federal or state government can't require anyone to get vaccinated. Now, private entities can, and many are kind of moving in that direction. Sort of different industries are doing that. For example, airline industries and cruise industries are requiring proof of vaccination for you to be able to get on a plane or get on a cruise liner. Colleges have started to require vaccination, private colleges. So I think there will be private entities that start to require, especially, like the longer we're looking at the data that just shows how effective vaccination is. I think it'll be a harder and harder argument to say, or to justify not doing it.
So, attendees, this is to you. What happens at panel discussions is that in the beginning, there's a few brave people ask questions. And in the last 5 to 10 minutes, there are about 5,000 questions that people want to ask. So if you're on the Facebook Live, Annie's monitoring that. If you have questions, if you're through the Eventbrite in Zoom, you can toss some questions here. Ms. Melinda did ask, are we seeing vaccines for the younger kids anytime soon? Let me just rephrase. Dr. Avula, you said earlier we're estimating maybe a 12 and up vaccine as soon as end of May, early June. Do I have you right on that? And there may be vaccine options for younger kids later in the year to next year.
Likely not until the first quarter of 2022 for ages 2 to 11.
Melinda, I hope that answers your question. Annie, let me check with you really quickly for our friends and visitors over on Facebook. Any burning questions that have come up on that venue?
It's crickets on Facebook, but
okay, Facebook.
Feel free to drop them here in the chat, y'all.
Zoom 12, Facebook 0. I'm gonna slip ahead to kind of our closing question. You can squeeze your questions still in here, but we're wrapping up the night. I think some of us have had long days. Love to hear from our panel. A last thought, if you have a thought you'd like to share. And we talked about how are we talking to our kids? How are you talking to yourself? How are you, maybe your partner, encouraging yourselves right now? Pastor Marvin, let's start with you.
That's a great question. I've been kind of sitting here deliberating on that since we started, just kind of thinking about the different ways that, that I've been trying to encourage myself and my wife and my mother-in-law. A lot of it is just kind of like back to basic stuff, like get moving, use this as a moment to like work on something, work on yourself, work on, just kind of setting those kind of goals personally. And just kind of continuing to recognize that like this has been an unprecedented moment, and just like, hey, we made it through. And in our house is like, man, we survived COVID, and there are a lot of people who haven't. And there's some who have, but they're still dealing with lingering effects. And I'm grateful, that none of the adults in my house are dealing with like lingering effects with respiratory issues or anything like that. Just looking at, what we've been able to accomplish, the small wins that we've been able to guide our children to during this time. Our kids at the beginning of this whole thing, they were still riding with training wheels. And by May, both of them were flying through the neighborhood on 2 wheels. And also, when I say flying, I mean flying. And just celebrating the different ways we've been able to see our kids grow, like and be there kind of intimately for that process has been really encouraging. It's been tiring. It has been hard, but also it's been very encouraging to really get to know. I joke with my wife all the time. Like we had kids, our plan was to like send them away for 8 hours a day. We knew school was coming. We're gonna have this little break. We'll see you in the afternoon to give you hugs and all that good stuff. But to be there intimately with them, over the course of this time has been good. And so we just kind of work on the principle of grace, recognize it's been hard for everyone. And just say, do a lot of stopping, taking a lot of deep breaths and saying, all right, like we can make this. And when it gets a little hard, we just, sit down and chill out for a second and then get back to it. So yeah, just a small everyday, appreciating every day as a gift.
I wrote small wins down. I'm like underlining, circling.
Yeah.
Put it in my bathroom mirror. That was for me. Thank you. Alicia, how are you encouraging yourself? What would you say?
I would have to agree. We were talking earlier about there just being kind of this darkness and not really planning too much in the future because you're just trying to get through each day. And it didn't take too long for us to kind of have that mentality of we're in this tunnel. Where is the light at the end of the tunnel? And we kind of had to say, okay, we need to make our own flashlights and we got to find something to look forward to get us to the next week and get us to the next day. And so we did, we really worked hard on opening up our communication lines with our families so that we're still connected because our son is so young. There's a lot of family members and that he's never met because COVID started. So we really had to work hard to build those relationships over technology and scheduling those phone calls with cousins and having that time to sing songs with grandma over calls virtually. And same thing that Marvin did, that time that we get to spend together. Working from home was a change of pace, but being able to wake up in the morning and lay in the bed and snack on Cheerios and play and read books to start our day versus getting up, get in the shower. Okay, we got to get you dressed. We got to get breakfast in you. We got to get out the door. Traffic. I got to make sure, having that time to just kind of slow down and enjoy our family. I think like a lot of people, when the world does kind of start reentry, we're going to miss those moments. So right now it's really about savoring them so that when time does come, maybe we'll feel a little bit more emotionally prepared for it.
Amy, what are you telling yourself? How are you encouraging yourself as a parent? What would you say?
Oh, that's a hard question right now. I've been pretty absentee. I will say one of the saving graces of this has been that I do get to spend 2 to 3 days, sometimes a week, working from home, and so I do get these like mini glimpses during the day, watching my kids on the computer, being able to have a quick bite to eat together. I in terms of supporting my wife in this, so she's a teacher in Richmond Public Schools, so she's been doing all virtual education for kindergartners, which is impossible. But one of the things we have recently reinstated is date night. And so you had asked earlier, what's one of the things that's changed post vaccination? I forgot to mention that now that we're fully vaccinated, about a month ago, we started going to restaurants again. So date night is good, healthy marriage rhythm.
I don't know if you can see the chat, but someone just put all caps, date night, exclamation point. Oh, that's great. Pierre, how are you encouraging yourself right now?
Staying in the moment, embracing the moment right now, not focusing on what we don't have, but just focusing on what we do have. And then one thing we started since the pandemic, we have a whiteboard. And on the whiteboard, we will have something motivational to keep us going, whether it's like Thankful Thursdays, Motivational Mondays, or something like that, to just keep us going. And that's where we've been. And it's been good. Like Alicia said, we're able to slow down. We're not running from this to that. And you're able to see things and develop a relationship. And it makes me feel like I'm not missing out on something, So it's been good, embracing the moment.
Thank you, Pierre. We're going to let that be kind of our last word tonight. I appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Thank you again to Ernst & Young for supporting this opportunity and this conversation. Special thank you to Annie Evans-Hedrick, who has managed our comments and our tech pieces. And amazing, special, wonderful thank you to the great, someone in this chat said, Wonder Humans on our panel. That would be Reverend Pierre Green, father and husband, Reverend Marvin Gilliam, father and husband, Dr. Danny Avula, father, husband, and very important person in the Commonwealth right now. And Alicia Saunders Wilson, mom and amazing colleague of mine. And thank you to Child Savers for putting this big picture together. Special shout out to Lisa Thompson for collaborating with the East End Faith Leaders Network. We're going to say, have a good night, everybody. I hope you've got some tea or a fluffy pillow in your future. We will hopefully see you again the next 3 Thursdays if you choose. We're doing some caregiver workshops. Another amazing colleague of mine, Katie Reynolds, is leading those. And they're a little bit more like practically, how the heck do I do this? We talked about some fears and managing your own emotions as a caregiver, structuring things, moving forward, thinking about your child's development. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, you can find out more information at childsavers.org or our Facebook page. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe, be well. Have a nice evening.